BeastNet Podcast, sponsored in part by James Safety Services, OCR Buddy, and supported by the fitness community. Here we discuss all things fitness related, running, rucking, mental health and preparedness, and of course, obstacle course racing. Welcome to the BeastNet.
Getting to the chiropractor for like a month, and I finally was able to get in, but it was like at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So I'm like, "Ugh."
No worries.
And I literally just like walked in the door. I'm like, oh, I got it all to work.
No worries. No worries.
Because I'm trying to get back into the shape I should be in, but I'm having back issues. So I'm like, I need to.
Oh no.
I need to go to the chiropractor, get that all fixed so that I'm healthy. Because my biggest problem is I usually get to a point where I'm doing really well, and then I don't pay attention to my body, and I get hurt, and then
I get it. Yeah, it's
So,
important. We
I'm
have
trying.
to listen to our bodies.
Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm like, let's go to the chiropractor, deal with all this stuff before it becomes a major issue.
Right.
So that I can get back to, because I want to do the Ironman in Galveston again next year, but I want to actually do really good at it this time. So
nice. Yeah, I did a super last year, and then this year I signed up for the race in November. Prior to COVID, though, I was racing a lot. I did 3 trifectas in 2019, and then
nice.
when COVID hit, it just like knocked me back, like a lot of us. And I try to, adjust to the virtual racing, and it just wasn't like it wasn't the thing for me. So at the end of the day, like I'm like back into a good routine, which is good.
Yeah. See, I was one of the oddballs who during COVID, I actually like went the opposite and did really well.
Yeah. Well,
So,
COVID was good. COVID was really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I was able to I dropped over 100 pounds during COVID.
Oh, wow.
So just running, doing all sorts of stuff. But then it was like, I was running 100 miles a month. Every month was my goal. And I did that for over 2 years. And then all of a sudden, like my body started just kind of all the injuries that I kept doing and just kept ignoring. And that's kind of like this time I'm like, I need to pay attention to my body, because that time I didn't.
Yeah.
And then when I did have like what should have been just a minor accident pretty much on an Ironman, it just took me out for like 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's tough. When we do too much and we break our bodies down. But yeah, I get that. I've lost about 130 pounds. So it's no small feat when you get into the triple digits.
no, it isn't. But the thing is, I mean, it's so easy to bring back. Like I said, I took like 9 months where I just couldn't do anything after that, because it was like all the injuries on top of, the minor, well, it should have been, like I said, a minor crash, just compiled and made it so that it took like 9 months before my body was like, okay, you can start running again. And then I'm like, cool, but now I've gained back 50 pounds.
Yeah, I've been on that journey of like the ups and downs with weight loss for several years. And it's one of those things, like we make a decision. What's more important is our routine, and our body. When we have weight gain, it's often a symptom, and it has to not be given emotion and be given it looking at it objectively and as data for how we can better find that routine and find that nutrition that's going to help us get in the right directions. And that's the thing, it's just, trust me, if I get going on this rabbit hole, it's like, whew, I have so much, because I've been 300 pounds, and I've been as low as 130 pounds and everywhere in between. And I've been an extreme, endurance athlete. And then I've gone backwards and gained 100 and whatever pounds back. This is my 3rd time losing over 100 pounds. Yeah. And that means like losing over 130 pounds by the fact that I had gained all of that back 3 times. So for me, it's like, I just get so passionate about really helping people identify to like where our mental health is really dependent on our physical health. When we can't have certain elements of our physical health, it affects our mental health, which then in turn affects our physical self. And so there's just a lot of moving parts there, and everybody has a million different advice pieces. And
Mhm.
it's like, I don't have advice. For me, it's like, listen to your body, truly understand who you are as an individual, because every single person's journey, they're gonna be like, I did this and it worked for me, and I did this and it worked for me, and did this diet and this diet and this thing.
Mhm.
And it's like, for those of us that have struggled with addiction, like we have to break diet culture, because that's where like we go into, well, if I just fixate on this thing for 9 months and I lose all this weight, then what? And
Yep.
it's like, it's so yeah, anyways, I get all passionate, and I know we're gonna be like I'm gonna let you lead this like podcast and what you want to talk about, but I have a very diverse background, so I'm not sure what like Boggs has shared or like any of that, but
I'll be honest, he didn't share a whole lot with me. So I'm
that's
getting to
okay.
know you as we're talking. And actually, we might as well just say, hey, this is Mike. I'm here with Brandy. I don't know how to pronounce that last
It's
name. I'm gonna
okay.
mess it up.
It's Munguia.
Munguia. Okay. Okay. So Brandy Munguia. As you can tell, we've already kind of started talking and went into it. Which I love the topic we're on. Like you said, the idea, because it's very passionate to me, because I'm one of those people that I see all the time. These people like, what diet works? You got to take the word diet, because we as a people understand the word diet incorrectly.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
That's
we
very
understand
true.
diet as this fast way to lose weight, and it's like, no, diet is just what you eat.
Yeah. It's just another term for nutrition
Yep.
or energy, or, like
Mhm.
that it's just been taken so out of context by the diet culture. Because when we look
Yes.
at diet culture, it's very much riddled with quick fix, emotion attached to good or bad with decisions, choices on
Hmm.
food. Whereas if you look at the construct of certain diets, if we look at like, let's say a keto diet versus a Mediterranean diet, or low carb, whatever, is that there's these constructs of, well, this is how it works. You will lose weight, or you will do this if you follow this rules. And you'll see results from people who are like, I lost all this weight doing keto, or I lost all this weight and this. And so people are like, oh, it works. But they're not taking into account their own personal physical being that may have certain food intolerances,
Hmm.
or may have certain underlying, health factors, whether it's diabetes or high blood pressure or any of these other factors, medications they might be on, their level of stress, their lack of sleep, are they a parent? Like, these are all factors when we start looking at total health.
Hmm.
Where are they really lacking in their lives that's just affecting their physical being due to inflammation or whatever it may be? So sometimes the diet isn't actually what a diet can be, is a scapegoat for wanting to set boundaries.
Yeah.
And
And
it's wild.
it is, and it's like, but what's sustainable? And that's the biggest thing, is I see all these people like, I'm on this diet, I've lost, 40 pounds,
Right.
and I just want to look at them and not say it in a bad way, but come see me in a year.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Sustainability is
if you've been able to sustain it, that's a different thing. And that's one of the things that I've been really trying to learn, is that sustainable. What can I do that's sustainable? And
yeah.
one of the biggest things for me was stop the fast food,
Yeah.
you know?
Fast food is a big, like when we look at convenience and also binge behaviors, because um, with fast food, it can quickly become a binge eating behavior around fast food, because it's high caloric density, low nutrient density. And if we look at, there simply isn't really, when we look at whole natural foods, we could binge like literally a barrel of apples and make ourselves so full, and the nutrient density is high and the caloric density is low. So volume of food isn't the issue here. It's the low caloric, or excuse me, the low nutrient density and high caloric foods. And then the convenience of, I have to eat something. And it's all this like disordered behavior around food and nurturing our bodies. And then our hunger cues get thrown off. And like, it's just this whole slew of information that's just been thrown at us left and right that everyone's like, what am I supposed to do? So then we get analysis paralysis, and we go into patterns of self-soothing where like fast food becomes a convenience or a self-soothing pattern that's like, I'm just gonna overeat in this thing knowing that it's not good for me. And that was something I struggled with when I got sober, was my binge eating behavior. My addiction transfer went right over to binge eating. And when COVID hit and I lost racing and I lost my community, I didn't lose the community, but the in-person community, because I was in a CrossFit gym. I was plugged in as a sponsored athlete with Spartan, and I was racing and I was training and I was so ingrained. My business was centric around transformation and wellness. Like I was helping women get prepared for their first race, getting out of a mindset of self-harm and getting into a space of camaraderie and wellness and self-love. And when COVID hit, that took everything from me. Everything that I cared about was gone. And had I not found, sorry, I get emotional in this part, but like, had I not found Amanda and Katina and Jessica and Gwen, like in the Sober Spartans, like I don't know if I would have gotten through COVID well and stayed sober, because I lost all my outlets. And so I turned to like baking, and I talked to my girls every week. Like we were on those calls, on those Zoom calls every week, and they got me through. I was in my first year of sobriety at that time.
Oh, wow.
And they were the best support system I could have ever had. Like it was just talk about community. You know, when we talk about Spartan racing and any kind of difficult sport, that community is unlike any other.
It is. And I've seen a lot of people who have kicked addiction with the help of people from Spartan because of that community. I mean, it's a community that's
it's a grit and a tenacity.
And they help each other, and we all love each other. I mean, it's amazing just the support that industry and everyone has. Like I said, I've seen a lot of people, and I can imagine how tough it would have been that first year, especially being in your first year, and then all of a sudden losing all that support.
Yeah, it was like I was, thank goodness for Amanda, because she has, over 10 years of sobriety, and she also, was a med surg nurse, was working in that high stress, high environment, and she was just so calm and so equipped, and never made me feel like I was wrong when I was on edge. I would go to her a lot because I felt like she's not going to think I'm crazy. And everything was falling apart. It was like my business, my family, and just everything was hitting the fan. And I looked at myself and said, I have to pivot. Like I have to find a way. And in my business, I had shifted from all that transformation coaching and wellness coaching around fitness and all that. And I moved into trauma recovery because that's what I actually was so already well rehearsed in. And it was interesting as I was navigating a trigger of my own and helping other people navigate triggers as well. But I was so ashamed of my binge eating taking over because I was starting to gain weight again, even though I was out in nature every day. Like we had a season pass to the river trails, and my husband and I were at the trails every day. I was like, I'm still going to do this virtual racing. I got my, my third trifecta of, I did my 3 trifectas by 30. That was my goal, to do 30 by 30, which was in 2020. And I got that third one as that virtual race through COVID. And that was what I clung on to, was I have to stay plugged into Spartan. Like I am a Spartan, what it meant to be a Spartan athlete. And I share this often from the stage when I'm speaking on the experience, because I will often use my Spartan journey as an example for business as well. Because if there's anyone listening here that was in Tahoe in 2019 when it snowed, you know what that was to finish that race. It was absolutely the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. It wasn't just the distance, and I had done that mountain before. I had done that mountain in 2018, and I was like, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to get my first like official double trifecta from this mountain. Like I had committed to it because that mountain broke me the first year. I finished the race, but it took me like, I think it was like 8-9 hours, something crazy, my first time doing the mountain. And so in 2019, when it was like, it might snow, it might, like, it's fine. About 5 miles into the race is when it started snowing for me. Like, and I was like, oh man. And anyone that's listening is like, well, there's only like 8 more miles left. It's fine. Like,
Yeah, it's fine.
Might stop snowing. It's fine. Thunder that's like shaking your body because you're up in high elevation. And it was it was such a wild experience to be going through that. And with every obstacle, it was like, I was so cold to the point I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel my feet. I wasn't prepared because I didn't have the right gear. And I was like, I can't stop moving. I have to keep moving. If I stop moving, it's going to be dangerous. Yeah. So it was like, but the thing about the sport is that even in those quiet, lonely moments where you're just like, I have to keep moving forward. It's like life. I have to keep moving forward. It's eerie. It's quiet. I don't know what's next. It's so quiet because they've evacuated everyone and you're on this mountain by yourself. And you can see some people ahead of you and you can see some people behind you, but you are on this journey with yourself, by yourself. And at the time I wasn't racing with any teams. I was by myself. And it was other racers that come up to you and they're like, how you doing? You don't even see each other's faces. You're just right next to each other. And I had the best conversation with another racer. I couldn't tell you her name. I don't know where she's from. All I know is that her and I went for at least 3 miles together in the snow. And it's like, that is what life is about, is sometimes you come alongside someone and you get them through something difficult and you move forward and you finish things. I finished that day where, when you're coming down the mountain and your feet hurt so bad, you're like definitely losing a toenail this time, like maybe 2 or 3. And I get to the bottom and I was so like exhausted and just freezing. I couldn't even do the Hercoist, which is like one of my like favorite ones. And that rope slipped out of my hands and that freaking sandbag came slamming down. And I was like, I can't even do the one obstacle that like, I'm so like easy for me. And it's right near the finish line. And I was like crying, like, I have to finish this. Like, I must finish this now. It took me much longer than I wanted, but anyways, I digress. I crossed that finish line and there was no one there because everyone was evacuated due to the storm. And the people who do the medals were there, but my husband wasn't there. My uncle wasn't there. Well, he's like a second cousin, but I call him my uncle. Wasn't there because they didn't know. They couldn't track me. Like, it was just, I guess we'll see her when she calls. And it was that surreal moment that made me realize I've done a lot of things alone in my life and persevered. And a lot of you listening have done the same, which is why you're so attracted to this kind of sport. It's not about, oh, I do hard obstacles and I do endurance. It's like, I know how to endure. I know how to face pain and suffering with optimism in a way that's like, you're not going to break me. And it's just getting to that point of accomplishment and achievement and then learning not to negate that success.
Yeah.
And it was just such a surreal moment. I just remember sitting there just like, I could have collapsed, but I'm sitting there and I'm just in this weird state of like, did I just do this? And you got to go stand in that line to get your trifecta medal. And I'm standing in that line and I'm just like, I can't believe I just did this for myself. And I didn't call anybody right away. Like, I was trying to like absorb the fact that I just finished that. And that was such a wild ride. And I shaved like 3 hours off of my time from the year before, which was wild. But but I will never forget that race. And that was the last race I did before COVID.
Yeah.
And it prepared me for what was ahead. Anytime I am ever faced with times of trial and tribulation, I think of that race. And everyone listening here has a race that really tested their spirit, and they finished and they crossed that finish line. So when we look at our ability to physically do that, is because of our mental ability and how we can truly endure and overcome and find the right people who will support you. And even if you finish alone, even if you do things alone, you must know it's because you trust yourself to do so.
Yeah.
It's not about the validation of other people being like, yeah, you did it. It's you knowing you did it. It's you knowing that you didn't give up, especially in all the times that you were in pain, questioning your existence, wondering if you're even going to be able to finish. And that goes for everything in life, because we all set big expectations for ourselves. It's not even about the race. The race is just a metaphor. The race is just a metaphor.
Yeah.
And that's why we love it so much.
It is. It's one of those, because like you said, we all have those races. For me, it was actually a marathon, but it was,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh my
most listeners
gosh.
have heard the marathon story. I told myself before my 40th birthday, I will do a marathon.
Yeah.
I was 310 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And it came down to like 6 days before my 40th birthday was the Seattle Marathon, and I'm like, I'm doing it. I
Yeah.
said I would do it. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Boggs, who most people know, me and Boggs have known each other since preschool. So Boggs stepped in and said, I'll go with you. And I'm like, you're not ready for this as much as I am. He's like, I'm going with you anyway. I'm like, okay, cool. And I had another friend who joined us about 13 miles in. She just she couldn't. She'd been sick for like a week, and she's like, I can't. And I'm like, well, thank you for going this far with me.
Yeah.
Boggs hit about mile 22, I think, and his back just started spasming.
Oof. So
And
worse.
I'm looking at him and I'm like, thank you for getting me this far. But if I stop to help you, I'm not going to be able to continue because I am wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't stop
And
moving. That's the
yeah,
hard
and
part.
I'm like, and he's like, no, go. I mean, because really, he knows it and I know it. He didn't start that marathon to finish the marathon.
Yeah.
He started that marathon to get me to finish the marathon.
So good.
So he got me the 22 miles that I needed him to get me.
So good.
And then those last like 4 was all on me.
Yeah.
And because I mean, like I said, I was 310 pounds. I was it. I was the last. They were taking down the course behind me as like even actually in front of me as I'm going.
Yeah.
It took me over 9 hours, but I did it.
Yeah. So
And
good.
then that was my race that said, okay, I can push myself to this. And having those 2 friends that were with me to a point,
Yeah.
and then said, okay, we got you this far. Now it's up to you to finish it.
So
And
good.
that was my race. That was like, okay, I can do this. It's amazing to have people by your side, but sometimes you have to take those last few steps. Just you.
Yeah. It's the self-trust part. It's like when you realize I can, I will, I must.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people who believe in you. And it's when we have those whispers of self-doubt that those people matter the most.
Mhm.
And then as they believe in us to the point of saying, now it's time for you to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
There's so much power. And that's why camaraderie and connection are so powerful, and being able to create community around those principles of doesn't matter where you're at, you can and will and must do hard things.
Yes.
Sometimes it just takes those people who are like, you are stronger than you think you are.
Yeah.
And I will stand with you, and I will move with you, and I will show you how strong you are until you trust yourself to continue forward without me.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful,
Oh,
it's
it's amazing.
so incredibly powerful. And again, it's that metaphor where after that race, how was that turning point for you as an athlete? Because really, you're an athlete. It doesn't matter if you were 310 pounds.
Yeah.
It's the athlete in you that's like, now what? I just did a marathon. Now what? So what was that for you?
For me, I think it took a little bit longer after that because I kind of started doing a little better. And then We did one more marathon together where I improved by about 2 hours.
Wow.
And Don Boggs finished that one. He
Yeah.
actually like got to a point where I was going so slow that he was in bed. He'd pushed himself farther than me and he was able to go fast and he left me. And I'm like, he's looking at me like, and I'm like, no, dude, go. This is your
Yeah.
marathon.
Yeah.
Go finish it. I will catch up.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was pretty much after that where all of a sudden I started eating better, figuring out the diet,
Right.
the nutrition, doing it correctly. I started making a whole bunch of changes. Like one of my biggest ones was Starbucks. I love coffee. I
I
love
love coffee.
coffee.
I love coffee. It's a non-negotiable in my life.
See, so what I did is I actually took, my protein shakes every morning and
Yes.
just started dumping them into my coffee instead of
Yeah.
getting just brewing coffee at home and dumping the protein shake into my coffee and that becomes my coffee. So it dropped all those calories and I still got the like my feeling that I'm getting my mocha,
Yeah.
so it was still there, but I did it in a healthier way. And that's one of the biggest things that I found was finding the substitutions,
Yeah.
being able to have the foods I want to have just in a healthier matter,
100%.
you know,
100%.
a
And it's
healthier
like
way.
prioritizing that for yourself to put your health overall, because you can still be satisfied and satiated. And
Mhm.
like you can learn to fall in love with that nutrient density and saying like coffee is a non-negotiable. Like I am the same way with my coffee, where I figured out how to enjoy my coffee without all the sugary, add-ons and the extra things that were actually not really the coffee.
Yeah.
It's like I had to learn how to overcome that sugar addiction as well. It's like I didn't realize how bad my addictive tendencies were until I became sober. And it was like once I started navigating that and then having to heal my binge eating problems around food and realizing like sugar was the one thing that I would literally throw myself into a ditch for. Like I was just like my biggest self-sabotage was
Mhm.
sugar and sugar behaviors. And so when I looked at starting to heal through food and finding ways to truly nurture my body, I started understanding macros and like how to better serve myself. It was interesting because I had gone through precision nutrition. I was NASM certified, had all these tools, and I abandoned my toolbox because I was hurting. I abandoned my
Mhm.
toolbox because I was like, I'm going to abandon myself because I'm going into survival mode, and how I nurtured myself was not healthy. And that's where the binge eating problem came into play. And it would be everything from fast food to sweets. I was baking every day, like I said. I was overeating on fast foods and DoorDash and all those things. I was terrified to go outside because my biggest fear was like literally what we were going through was like a massive fear of mine. It was so wild to be like living in such a big fear.
Yep.
And I would go outside to the river with my husband. We would go every day. But if I crossed paths on a trail with someone, like I start freaking out. Like it was like it was the worst. It felt like I was so trapped, and the only control I had was how I was overeating and over consuming and over like and hurting myself. And this
Yeah.
is I'm glad that we can kind of have this open dialogue, because some of you listening might struggle with that. And as an athlete, it was so difficult, the guilt that followed when it was like I was so dialed in when I was training. I was dialed in. My macros were on point. I was at the gym twice a day. I was a 5 a.m. CrossFitter. I would go to the gym in the afternoon and I would run at night with my husband. And we would run anywhere between 5 to 10 miles a day. And that was our training regimen
Yep.
routine. And it was so dialed in. I was like, this is my routine now. Like, this is my life. Like, I love this. This life is mine. And when it was taken away like that, I did not adapt well. And here I thought I had all these adapting tools that I had in my little toolbox, but I abandoned the toolbox. So the lesson here was, how did I get to a mindset to not abandon my toolbox anymore? Because I lost all that weight again, but I had to learn how to find the right help, because now I have people I can lean on. There's these incredible trainers that I work with that are just phenomenal. They are, and here's the thing, it's like, again, I had the toolbox, but I needed someone else to guide me because I could not guide myself. And it's okay to have that self-awareness. It's okay to have someone that can check your behaviors, help you stay on track, be a soundboard that you need to have. And sometimes it needs to be someone professional that you know, because sometimes our friends can't carry that for us, and we have to be aware of that. Like I wouldn't want to take that to my husband or my best friend and try to have them help me figure it out. It's not on them. They're not professionals in it either. So the awareness of knowing some of your professional friends. We have great people in our community who do this. I know Katina Gadd does this for people. She's incredible. And I look at the fact that when we find someone who can customize something for us, not the blanket diet culture we were just talking about.
Yes.
Customize a plan based off of your behaviors, your patterns, the things that you like, the things that you don't like, the way you enjoy moving your body, and truly integrating a routine that is best for you and your daily, truly your daily life. And not just that, oh, I'm going to have this plan and it's like, if I deviate away from the plan, I'm a bad person. It's that find someone who will help you understand what it looks like to live in a true healthy lifestyle for you, so that you can start breaking patterns that you have. And this is the biggest part. And I want everyone to hear this from my heart with love, because I have been 300 pounds and I've cycled through the weight loss multiple times. Do not worry about what anyone else says about your journey. And you do not need to take advice from everyone or the internet either. And comparison can rob you of what is your individualized journey. And comparison, when we look at other people who are doing well, sometimes it's not about comparison, it's about being compelled to be called up to meet their level of optimized health, right? So if you see people who are at an optimized health, whether that be an athlete or someone you've seen their journey and you see them succeeding, we can't compare ourselves to someone else's 10 years of sustainability, right? When we look at sustainability, my coach, his name's Alec Cheplak, he's absolutely incredible. He says there's 10 standards for 10 years. And if you just follow these 10 standards, you will truly be able to sustain a life of wellness. And you've all heard this before, but I'm going to quote Alec in this because it's so valuable and it's so true. If you do these 10 things, you lift weights, you're going to get stronger over time. Okay. Walk more, you're going to have more endurance. Control disordered way, just truly awareness way. Okay. 4, get more sleep. Drink more water. 5. 6, manage your stress. 7, stop drinking alcohol. 8, get your blood work at least 2 times a year so you understand your data. 9, track your progress so you can see how it's affecting you. Again, data. And lastly, do all of the above for 10 plus years and tell me that it doesn't sustain your health.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, like I said, the sustainability. And I think the big one you mentioned it a little bit earlier is the getting into a rhythm.
Yeah.
You get into a rhythm, and I think that's what COVID messed up for a lot of people.
So many people.
Where all of a sudden that you couldn't go to the gym anymore, you couldn't do all that. And for me, I got lucky. Like I said, for me, my work, it messed up my work rhythm, but also ended up giving me more free time.
Yeah.
Because I was a safety guy. I did classes. Now all my classes are on Zoom, so I don't have the drive time between classes.
Right.
I'd end up with 2-3 hours in the middle of the day, and I'm like, oh, there's a park across the street. I'll go for a walk.
Right.
And then that walk turned into a jog, and then it
Yeah.
became a game to myself. How far can I get in an hour?
Yeah. It's a compound.
To get faster and faster. But it became that rhythm. And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of us start running into problems. When all of a sudden, for me, I got into the rhythm of 100 miles every month. That was just my way of doing it. I had it done.
Yep.
All of a sudden, once I, crashed, had the little minor, really, I didn't crash. I fell over, but whatever. But I dislocated my shoulder and messed up my knee.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, my rhythm's gone.
Yeah. So how do we overcome that part?
And that's the hardest part because is having that like people to talk to. Because once my rhythm was gone, I also never changed my diet. So I'm still eating like I'm running 100 miles a month,
Yep.
but I'm not. And then I'm like, how did I go and suddenly gain 50 pounds? Because I'm still eating like I'm not burning.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, is like it's allowing ourselves the grace
Hmm.
to adapt and overcome,
And
and
that's the
to
word adapt.
adapt. Yeah. And
Yeah.
to be aware quickly and not ignore the awareness. Had I not ignored my cues of awareness, knowing this was where I want people to hear the value of, if you take anything from this lesson, I want you to just hear like your mindfulness can change everything for you. And it takes not just, hey, I'm aware of this, but I must choose to do the difficult thing for me also.
Mhm.
And sometimes it takes radical honesty with yourself. That's like, I'm aware of this pattern and behavior, and I must do something different. And we have to realize that we have to let go of the feelings and stick to the program of what we want for ourselves. Now, I'm not talking your diet program. I'm talking about your programming of when you start to reprogram yourself into a higher self, a more optimal health, a more dialed in self. We have to choose to adapt our program. When we cannot be as physical, we have to say, okay, in order to balance that, I can't be physical, I'm experiencing injury, I have to reduce the amount of energy I'm consuming so that I maintain my baseline.
Yep.
And that's where like I started to rewire myself around this language of my body, because being brought into these patterns of diet culture that's like, you're not good enough if you're overweight, you're a failure, you're
Hmm.
lazy, you're whatever, all those things. And it's like, but any of you listening that have experienced obesity, we are none of those things.
No.
It's those things that's like, we are not lazy people. We are not like, we are people who have experienced so much trauma that it manifests in that way of our obesity, because we were not taught effective coping mechanisms growing up.
No.
So as adults, we actually have to reprogram ourselves to find effective coping mechanisms, and then retrain our brains around how to cope when anxiety strikes or stress induces, or we get into difficult situations such as injury or loss or circumstantial change. So we have to learn new coping behaviors, but not ignore those behaviors and those tools and those resources. When we talk about people, like I said, during when everything was taken, I leaned into my community more so that I had the right support to not relapse on my sobriety. But it was this decision to be mindful of, I need community right now, whatever it takes for me to not relapse, whatever it
Yep.
takes for me to not relapse. I was willing to put on 100 pounds to not relapse. But I'm not saying that's a healthy way. I'm saying that I wish I had more self-awareness then from what the self-awareness I have now, that if COVID happened again tomorrow, now I know those tools are community, adaptability, and the ability to adapt and overcome and adjust what I need to stay physical with my body, but also stay connected with people who will help. And that's a big thing. Your community,
Yes.
if you isolate yourself, you will cause self-harm.
Mhm.
And that's why there's so much power when we look at, like more heart than scars, is that you will always be met with more heart. Every time you feel like it's too much, you feel like it's this is too big of a scar for you guys. This community is like, no way. You get over here, because there's nothing that's going to phase us.
No.
And you're met with that unconditional love. That's what unconditional love is. When you find the community, is it's absolutely unconditional. No matter
And
what
it's
I
amazing.
took to those Sober Spartan sisters, no matter what pain I was in, they did not meet me with 1 ounce of judgment. They did not, like, I would come just breaking down, literally losing myself, and they talked me through it. They checked in with me. They helped me through one of the hardest seasons of my life. And that is that. If that isn't the definition of heart, I don't know what, and my hat goes off to them wholeheartedly for that season, for sure.
Yeah. They're amazing, and I mean, everyone has more heart than scars. And I mean, it's one of those things. I think we are the hardest on ourselves.
Yeah.
And it takes that community. I mean, we're social animals. It takes our community to help us to get rid of, because that was one of the hardest things. I would get into a system, but then all of a sudden you'd have those days like, oh, we went on a trip and I went out to, you know, Bubba
Slippery
Gump's
slope. Yeah.
and had dinner. And then it's like, oh, now I feel horrible because and I have all this guilt. But then I'm like, but one day, one slip up like that,
Yeah.
giving myself that reward basically shouldn't be a bad thing. Every
Right.
once in a while, you're going to have those days.
Yeah.
If it's one in an occasion, that's not going to be it. But then you would have, well, I screwed up now. It's over. Might as well give up. And then that's when, people make their mistakes. And I'm guilty of it. I've done it before where I've been really good on my diet
Oh
and
yeah.
my nutrition. And then all of a sudden I have a bad day. And then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
might as well give up. I just messed it up. It's like, no, you had one slip up. Now it's over. You can't change
Yeah.
it. Move forward. One of my favorite sayings is always forward.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like there's this turning point that if you struggle with this, if anyone struggles with this, you really have to start looking at nutrition objectively
Mm,
and less emotionally. Because what would happen is that if you were raised in environments where food was scarce, or that it would be given to you or taken away or weaponized, then it was given emotion. And so as we've gotten older, we have to start to realize that because food is something that is ingrained in our lives, it is an experience in our lives. It is something that bonds us to our friends and our family. It's something that we need to nurture our bodies. And so, yes, are there elements to memories that are tied to meals with family and friends? But we have to start looking at those memories of the people and the experiences that are not attached to the food. And then we have to look at disassociating the emotion of good and bad and guilt away from food that's meant to be energy for our body. And this is where I started to shift from a good, bad food mindset to what's the data telling me? Because
hmm
if I'm understanding the data and I'm looking at like, how do I understand if I'm not getting enough protein and I'm losing energy, it's because I'm not fueling my body with the right nutrition. And it's okay if we have a sweet treat and we allow ourselves to be like, this is a treat and I'm not going to derail myself for this. I'm going to enjoy this moment and then I'm not going to cause myself harm with it. And I'm sharing this from the experience of the binge eating and overcoming the binge eating, because I knew what it was like to say, I'm just going to have, I just baked these cookies. I'm going to have just one because I baked them and they're mine and I love them. But one turns into six and six turns into eight. And before you know it, you're like, F it, I'll just eat the whole tray. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and there's this carelessness of it stopped becoming about the flavor. It stopped becoming about the try it. It became, I've gone too far and now I'm going to go further. And then that way I have the control of how bad I'm going to feel. And it's like, why should we feel bad about things that we enjoy? It's not the thing we enjoy that makes us feel bad. It's the overconsumption. It's the self-abandonment.
hmm
It's the self-harm that makes us feel bad. And that's why there's this ongoing debate about food being a drug, right? Or sugar being a drug, or those things being a drug, because the same patterns apply. And any of you that have struggled with addiction listening, understand that it's like, I can't just have one drink. I know this about myself. The same goes for if I'm going to enjoy a sweet treat, if I have to tell myself that this is not something that I'm doing to hurt myself, that I can still go to a birthday party and have a bite of cake and not eat 16 cupcakes and hide. Like it, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you've ever struggled with binge eating disorder, these are real things. And it's just like, we have to ask ourselves, what am I really trying to fill when I'm overeating?
hmm
Am I feeling abandoned? Am I feeling rejected? Am I feeling out of control? Because if so, then I need to check in with that, not try to have control over this moment of chaos. And it's like, we thrive in chaos. It might as well be the chaos of your success. It might as well be the mindfulness of, I'm choosing to undo these patterns. I'm choosing to not cause self-harm. I'm choosing to say no to these things that cause me harm in order to be successful. Delayed gratification, right?
Mhm.
So it's these moments where we have to look at, when is it, for me, what can I do to sustain long term, so that if I choose to go to, one of my things is Disneyland. I love Disneyland. It's like everyone, listen, my inner child loves that space.
Mhm.
And I declared that I was like, every time I go to Disneyland, I'm going to choose my one little fun Disney sweet treat. I'm going to literally obsess over what that treat is going to be. And I cannot wait to get it from, Main Street. Like, I don't need to have the churro and the pretzel and the nostalgic things, because I'm going to go see what's at Jolly Roger's, and I'm going to find that one seasonal sweet treat. And then it's going to last me for probably 2 days, because I know that, unfortunately, my body started responding to my sugar. And if I have too much sugar, I will spike my blood sugar and I will get sick.
Yeah.
And so that was an effect of my binge eating all those years, was that now I cannot physically consume too much sugar, but I still allow myself, saying, I love my coffee, so stevia is my best friend, and I will put my chocolate protein in my coffee so I can have my mocha every day
Mhm.
without the 126 grams of sugar.
Yeah.
You know,
And that was one thing I found too, was the sugar.
yeah,
Once I
sugar's
once I
wild.
started eating healthy, and COVID helped me big on that, because before that I drove constantly. I was driving from job site to do
Right,
classes and teach.
right,
Now all of a sudden I wasn't. I was at home, so I could make food and I can
yeah,
get good stuff from the store and get stuff that I could make.
right,
Instead of getting processed meat, just get, sliced deli meat, stuff like that,
right, right,
for sandwiches, and trying to, and doing wraps instead of bread. So it wasn't as
right,
much,
right.
and just
Finding
finding all
the
these different
trade-off.
things.
Yeah.
Like my biggest treat, and most people have heard this, for me, is pineapple,
Oh, I love pineapple.
because it gives me that sugar, a
Right,
little bit of sugar that my body's craving, without all the
right,
processed sugars that make me
right.
feel bad. But every once in a while, I'll have that. Oh, I'm gonna have, and I'll have like one candy bar, and I feel like I'm gonna hurl, because it's
Yeah,
just my body's
too
like,
much sugar.
yeah.
We lowered our baseline for tolerance on
Mhm.
sugar. And it's like, now with my routine, I travel and I work and I speak for a living and I do all these things. So finding how to make sure that I'm still fueling my body, because then what started happening is, to your point with the travel, is sometimes I actually wouldn't get the time to eat. And then I'm
Mhm.
like lost in energy. I'm not sleeping. And then all of a sudden I'm like, why do I have the worst brain fog and fatigue? And I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm not trying to not eat.
Yeah.
And so it was like training myself to realize, we have all of these incredible services at our fingertips now, where like you can order your groceries on Instacart. You can order healthy options from DoorDash. You can physically, like, there is no obstacles in the way. You have to choose to actually leverage those things. And here's the thing: making things harder for ourselves does not make it more valuable.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that I wanted to really help people understand when they start healing from disordered eating patterns, is that trying to make things harder for yourself and saying, I have to do it all myself. I have to prep all my food myself. I have to do all this myself. Any way that you can make this easier for yourself, do that. Because trying to force yourself to feel like, well, if I'm not working hard enough, I don't deserve it. It's like, no, like, you can make things easier for yourself, see a good outcome. And again, the sustainability, that if you are someone who has a vacation coming up or things, it's like, make it about the activities, not about the food. The food will be great. Listen, my husband and I are foodies. You can go to my Instagram right now and see my elegant eat stories. Like, we go out to fun dinners and we love food, but it's these moments where I'm like, I want it to be an experience. I don't want it to be something that I am over consuming and overdoing. It's that I can find experiences, enjoy the experience, and walk away. One of the biggest things my husband helped me with, I know this sounds silly, but my scarcity mindset of food was that I have to eat it all or I have to save it. And my husband was like, because he grew up in a family that owned a restaurant, he goes, just throw it away. Just throw it away. And I was like, but I feel so guilty. He's like, why?
Yep.
And it was that moment where I was like, why am I feeling guilty when I'm not causing anyone harm by throwing this away? I'm not causing anyone harm by not overeating. Just me.
That was one thing, like for me growing up, it was one of those, and my wife cracks up because I can do this. I can make one meal like turn into like six
Yeah.
because I'll start turning it into other things like we do all the time. We'll make something with rice.
Yeah.
And so I'll just take the leftover rice, put it in the fridge, and then the next day, like what I did this last week where I think Saturday I made a brisket. And then we had a bunch of meat left over from smoking the brisket. And then the next day she made something with rice. And then the next day I made fried rice and threw the brisket into the fried rice and just,
Yeah.
but I grew up in a family where that's just kind of,
You make it stretch.
you made the food stretch as much as you could. And I never thought anything twice about it. It's just, that's the way I've always done it. So it's like, oh, what can I do with what's in the fridge?
Yeah. I mean, that was for growing up. It was like, it would go from scarcity of not knowing when we would get to eat. Like it was like and I don't mean to share this, but some of you might have a similar experience, but like my mom would leave for like a week at a time. And it would be like, here's $100 on the counter, like figure it out. Now you leave $100 with like a teenager and a 10-year-old, like, you're gonna just go and order pizza and half of that's gone.
Yeah.
And it was like day 4, we're digging through the cabinets and trying to figure out what can we make? Like, what can we make from this? And then when she would return, it's like all of a sudden we're going to Sam's Club and now we've got all this food again. And it would go from, I'm so hungry that I'm going to probably eat like 16 bags of chips and then get yelled at. And it was never this sustainability growing up that was like, we didn't have consistent family meals together. We didn't have, packed lunches for school. It was like all or nothing. And
Yeah.
so that gap in between as I got older was like all or nothing. And it became that pattern of like, if I have money in abundance, I will overeat, I will overconsume. If I didn't, I would starve and I would go for like 3-4 days. It was this awful pattern of survival mode that when I got to sustainability, I had to start honoring the stability I was creating. And I think that's what's really important for a lot of you listening, that if you grew up in very traumatic home environments, or you learned patterns that you don't actually want to carry with you for the rest of your life, it's starting to honor the stability that you are creating for your family and looking at who you become and the generational growth for the health of your family. And you're also breaking all sorts of different generational ties when you're healing and you're choosing to heal and become an emotionally aware and emotionally stable adult. You do the same with your patterns around nutrition and wellness and total health, is by saying, by healing this for me, I am also healing this for my children, for my family. I'm leading by example. Throw the diet noise out the window and look at the true like wellness and healing of nutrition and movement and finding the appropriate coping outlets for yourself when your kids are going through stress as teenagers. Instead of them feeling this comfort with food, they will find more comfort in, where do I find comfort in things I enjoy? Where can I place my energy that isn't just consuming, but really allowing ourselves to expel the energy rather than consume,
Yeah.
And that's a
And
big thing.
oh, it's a huge thing. And I think for me, what it was is wasn't more, what mine more was is like my parents worked opposite shifts a lot of times, and my parents were constantly on the yo-yo diets.
Yeah. Oh, my
So,
mom too. I was on a diet by the time I was 10. It just,
and it was tough for me because I graduated high school at 140 pounds.
wow.
I couldn't like, and my biggest problem is I kept having problems putting on weight because there was never food in the house. And it
Yeah.
wasn't because we didn't, it was because my parents have like the same thing I kind of did as I got older. If it's in the cupboard, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
If I have to go to the store and get it, I'm less likely to eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the problem was though, is I'm a teenager going, I need this food.
Yeah.
So a lot of times for me, it was a lot of what can I find? And that's what, like my wife crack up. I can go into the cupboard and find the most random things
Oh
and throw them
yeah. Or
together
like,
and make something. And she's like, how does this taste good? And I'm like, you would be
yeah.
surprised,
Yeah.
but I had
Where,
to work with.
like condiment homes, you know, it's
Yep.
like it just, and it's, when we look at this, like we give grace, we humanize our parents in a way that says they too were not equipped with the
Mm,
right tools,
yeah.
and they would never want to actually cause harm to their
No.
children. It's the fact that they didn't know any different. So us being the emotionally aware and emotionally mature in a different way, we have to take that awareness and we have to apply it to our lives for ourselves and our children. Because when I look at my daughter, I have an 8-year-old and she does karate and she's just a ball of energy. And we're really mindful of what we place in our house, because it's, my 8-year-old is not grocery shopping. I am.
No. Hmm.
My 8-year-old is not choosing off of menus. I am. And so it's not me placing control over her, it's me leading her over decisions, things that she will learn to like and enjoy. And I don't weaponize food. I don't weaponize sweet treats. That's like, that's bad for you. That's unhealthy for you. That's this. It's letting my girl understand her hunger cues, not shaming her when she doesn't finish her plate, like letting her make decisions when it comes to sweet food. She, on her birthday, and we went to Disneyland 2 years ago for her birthday, and she had too much sugar to where it made her sick. And she will always remember that moment. She's like, I know that I can't have too much sugar because it'll make me. My girl, it's like if she doesn't finish her ice cream, I'm not like, you better finish that because we bought it. I'm like, it's all right, throw it away.
Yeah.
Teaching her to know her own hunger cues and to listen to her body, that is the best gift I could give her as a mom, as a woman, because all I heard growing up was, that's bad. You need to lose weight. Nobody's going to like you if you don't lose weight. You can't eat that. There's too much sugar. There's too much fat. That's not good enough. Not good enough. Not good enough.
Hmm.
And so I refuse to repeat that pattern with my girl. She doesn't step on a scale at 8 years old. She's not pulling at her clothes. If her clothes are too tight, it's time to size up. And that's on me. That's not on her. And it's like, there's a lot of listeners here that had this start happening to you as a child. Now, when we look at our children, when I see my 8-year-old girl and I see how little she actually is, it makes me realize my mom had no idea the harm she was causing to an 8-year-old child, a 9-year-old child, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old. When you
Yeah.
see these kids these days, you're like, I was that age once. And it makes
Hmm.
you realize how young that really is. When you
And I
see
think,
it as a teenager, you know?
oh yeah, and I think it's one of those things too when you see pictures of yourself at that age. Like I can remember, up until I was a teenager, being told all the time I was chubby and everything else. And I'm looking at the
Yeah.
pictures going, yeah, I had a little bit of baby fat. But then by the time I was
Normal
like a
teenager.
teenager, I was
Yeah.
so afraid to eat. And like I said, I graduated high school 140 pounds. Most of my friends are like, if you turned sideways, you disappear
Yeah. It's
because I
just
was
too
tiny.
much. It's
I
too
had a
much.
20, what my jeans when I graduated high school were 28 30s.
Wow. That's just wild, because and this is where I'm glad that we can have this transparent conversation, because men deal with this too.
Hmm. They do.
I think a lot of people really need to destigmatize the fact that men also have dealt with disordered eating behaviors
Yeah.
and things that were imposed upon them. And it's like, thank you for being honest and transparent about this, because we need to destigmatize health. We need to unpack these things for people who are questioning, why have I fluctuated in my weight? It's not normal for us. It's not a data point that's a normal data point to fluctuate in weight 20 pounds over. And we're talking about extreme fluctuations of 100 pounds, 80 pounds, 65
Hmm.
pounds, and lack of consistency in the long term, because the trauma response. and that food was given too much emotion and power in our lives, that it became dysregulated.
Mhm.
And so when we look at regulating our nervous system, when we start talking about like therapy and us getting help and us finding outlets and all those things, the same goes for our nutrition. We have to start learning how to regulate and self-regulate what our body needs, and listening to ourselves and saying, yeah, I do enjoy sweet treats. I want that dopamine hit from the treat, but it's not going to be a daily thing in my life.
No.
And it's not going to be something that I cause myself triggers anymore. I have to be aware what triggers me, and then be aware of not causing myself harm. Regulating and doing that mindfulness of self-regulation, just like when we remove all the alcohol from the house, or we remove all the triggers in our lives, and we start setting boundaries with people, and we start telling people no. We have to start doing the same for when it comes to feeding our soul, feeding our body. And I don't mean to sound so like, I don't want to oversimplify this by any means, because it's like this mindfulness piece, it compounds over time. And as we're talking about sustainability today, you must start with the small things, because if you try to do an overhaul of everything, you will overload your system. And
Mhm.
it's just like a detox. When you detox from alcohol and you feel physically sick, the same will happen with sugar. And then having to tell yourself, like, how am I going to live my life like without the things that I'm so used to? And it's like you learn to live a different life,
You
and
do.
you step into a new era of who you are becoming, and allowing yourself to just thank yourself, survive, and allow yourself to step into who you're becoming next.
Yeah. And it's a tough thing to do. I mean, um, I've had a lot of friends that have had to, battle alcoholism and all that. Don's a big proponent of that, and I was there for most of his, the issues he had. And I mean, anybody who knows him and like knows that he's had some rough things happen,
Yeah.
um, that would make anybody drink.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've seen that the other side of him, and it didn't make him a bad person anyway. It just you know,
Wasn't self.
that's just how he dealt,
Yeah.
and we all have that. Um,
Disassociation.
and I'm so amazed and so proud to see him now and what he's been able to do, to step out of it, because I think one of the hardest parts for him was he was functional.
Yeah.
Like he still held a high job, did everything,
Yep.
you know, unless you saw behind the curtain, you would have thought nothing about it.
Yep.
And luckily he was able to get the help he needed and all that. I've luckily never had a huge issue with that. Mine was cigarettes.
Yeah.
Smoked for years and was able to finally quit it like 7 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I think a lot of people that go into the sport have some kind of addictive personality.
Yeah. Yeah. We just found a different channel to place that energy.
Yeah. And that's kind of it. You have to take that addictive personality and say, okay, what can I become addicted to that isn't
Right.
going to kill me, that's going to make me better?
Absolutely. And that's that part that, like I said before, we thrive in chaos. We look for it. We only know chaos, but we have to start learning the difference between the positive chaos that actually enforces change in your life, and the negative chaos that dismantles your life.
Yeah.
We have to start looking for and creating positive chaos. Success is chaotic. Stability becomes chaotic when you are healing and you are mindful and you are choosing to get out of that pain and get into that focus. It's chaotic, but
Yeah.
it is a positive induced chaos. It is a self-improvement chaos. Lean into that chaos and lean away from the destructive chaos and move into the constructive chaos, and start constructing a life that eventually truly becomes calm. I have so much calm and peace in my life now that this was a space I had always wished I could be in, but I had to stop wishing for it, and I had to start willing to make it happen. I had to start really showing up, not just wanting it, but willing myself to do it and choosing to do these things, and really, really mindfully pursuing that change. We can't wish for it. We have to work for it every single time.
And that's the hardest. And I think that was the hardest thing for me for a long time. After I hurt my foot, which we didn't talk about, but I hurt my foot really bad about 7 years ago. I kept using it as an excuse and kept saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I kept talking about it and wishing it, like you're saying,
Yeah.
but I never did anything about it. It wasn't until I did something about it. And then all of a sudden I dropped 100 pounds and everyone's like, what changed? I'm like, I changed. I stepped up and actually did realize and remembered nobody's going to do this for me.
Yeah.
People will help me.
Yeah.
People will help me. People will walk beside me. People do everything, but no one's going to do this for me.
Yeah. It's such a mindset shift when we allow ourselves to will ourselves to do things. That's the part about discipline and the compound effect of discipline. Discipline doesn't need to hold a negative feeling. It can truly be a follow through and saying that done beats perfect every single time. Even if you're doing something at 25% capacity that day, you are still doing something. And that compounds over time. And then it becomes routine and it becomes ingrained. And we must allow ourselves the grace of the compound effects in our lives when we choose to make choices that build us rather than break us. Yeah. And we must break down those old patterns to build up the new ones. But we do not have to choose to live in a state of disparity, because we have to remove our identity from that. We have to place our identity in our ability to persevere, in our ability to do more, be more. And again, it's about who are you becoming? Instead of saying, well, this is how I've always been. No, who are you becoming? Yeah. And who are you going to step into being in order to become that next version of you?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's the always forward. Like I said, that's been my biggest thing, because what we've been, what we've done, we can't change.
Yeah.
The only thing we can change is who we're going to be tomorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll end on this note of you listening here today. You are strong enough. You are capable, and you are worthy of creating change by choice in your life. Mm-hmm. And you will persevere in everything that you choose to do for yourself, but you must be willing and wanting to pursue that change. And you can absolutely do it 150%, because there's so many people here that want to see you succeed, but you must see yourself succeed, and you must see it through, and you have to trust yourself to get there. Because that's the one thing you know to be true, is you can trust yourself to overcome the hard every single time.
Yeah. Definitely.
So good.
Yes. Well, thank you for this. This was a great episode. I had a lot of fun talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. You were welcome back. Anytime you want to come back. Like I felt like we could have talked for another 3 hours. So
easily. I got so many other topics in my pocket too. We just naturally got on this topic today.
We did. Well, if you want to do another one of them, let me know, and we will let you come back on anytime you want. So this was a blast. I love the way you think about things, the way your brain works, and it's just all positive and it's all good. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. And talk about compound effects. I've been on a healing journey for over 10 years. And so it comes from a space of collective knowledge from all the different outlets I have visited in my healing journey. And I'll tell you, the best journey you can ever be on is your healing journey. It's for you, with you, by you, and you will. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. We're all here for you. If for the listener who's listening, we're here for you. We want you to know that you're never alone in this journey. That's why you're listening to this podcast, because there's people that are here who have walked different paths. And if you're on one of those paths and you need help, we're the ones that are going to come up alongside you, no matter how long you need, so that you can trust yourself to finish that race.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you. And
thank you.
We'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.